Hello, stampers and paper crafters. This is Cindy Lynn with my Inky Fingers. Thank you so much for visiting me today on my YouTube channel and blog. Now, you see my glass mat and all my lighting because I have something I want to show you. I got this off Amazon and it's a silicone mat. And I gotta be honest, when I got it, I was like, what is this little box? Oh no, these are gonna be too small. And I have the waffle flower mat, right? But I'm so afraid to put like ink on it because I don't want to stain it. I got it for Christmas. It's so pretty. I'm sure it'll be fine. But I ordered these and look at the size of these. I was so pleased. Oh my God, I was so excited. They're super cool. There's a blue and a purple, and they're really nice and thin. They stick down to my glass mat. I mean, so perfectly. But I like to roll them, and I'm just going to show you. I like to roll it and then rub my hand along it as I lay it down. Just because they're so thin, they do kind of get some bubbles underneath them. But let me tell you, this little guy, he sticks so good. Check that. I'm going to lift up my mat. It's not even going to move. So I thought, these are going to be perfect for when I do inky stuff. And if they get stained, oh well, they're super cheap. And I'm going to link them down below for you so that you can have a look, because this is a game changer. I mean, stop spending money on expensive mats. Well, except the waffle flower one, because that one's awesome. But nevertheless, if you're on a budget, these are fantastic. I love it. So let's get into this card and see how this mat really works. So for today's card, I entered in 3 challenges, and all the info on those challenges are down in the description below on my YouTube or in the body of my blog. So you're definitely welcome to go have a look at those. And I decided that I wanted to do some ink splatter dropping, but I wanted the ink to really splatter when I dropped it, right? So I went with my 3 colors that were part of one of the challenges, which were gray, lime green, purple, fuchsia. So these were the 3 colors that I had closest. I omitted the purple. I hope I don't get disqualified, but nevertheless, the other challenge was to use a designer series paper, honeybee or lily pad. And the other one was to use 3 of things out of a list. And I chose green, gold, birthday sentiment, and cake and candles. So I used 4. So what you're going to need is any kind of pattern paper that doesn't have a lot going on, like the honeybee that I'm going to use is perfect. If it's foiled, even better. The new paper coming out in March for the celebration, that would be perfect too. So some basic black, some whisper white, and a couple little scraps as we go along. You're going to need the February paper pumpkin, and I figured let's do another paper pumpkin alternative. May as well pull these stamps out, because if you saw my last video on the paper pumpkin alternative, I didn't use the stamps. I'll put a card up above so you can look at it, but I figured let's play with the stamps today. So I'm going to show you how to do this and create a really cool ink splatter. It's super easy. You'll need your aqua painter brush, fill that up, some paper towel, and there's my trusty little watertight container with just a random sponge I cut to fit in there, and I've got water. I just find that if I use that, I don't have to use up all the water in my aqua painter while I'm using it. So I know you can't see my inks because I'm zoomed in quite a bit, but what you want to do is pick up the darkest, most pigmented part of the ink, and I'm holding my hand up really high, but I'm holding it probably, I'd say 18 inches above my paper. And what you want to do is squeeze your aqua painter until it drops. And I'm trying to angle my hand so you can see. This is really difficult, but you want to drop your droplets. And the more droplets that drop in the same spot, the more of a splatter you're going to get. So this is really difficult with this angle. I actually didn't think I was right in the camera, but I am. Now, when I go into the green, you're going to see a lot better because I'm on a different part of the card. So I didn't realize I was right in the lens of my camera, my bad. But you will see in this one when it drops. So you get a good eye and just once your first drop goes, just drop a couple more over top of it. And if you find that your ink is getting too light, then just go back and pick up some more of the really dark pigment like I'm going to do here. And I'm not picking up any of the water. I'm going to use that water that's in my ink pads later. So don't stress about the paper getting wet and wilted, because I'm going to show you how to flatten it and make it 100% perfect. But after each color application, dry your paper, pull out your heat gun and dry that up. Now I am going to speed up the video for time because you guys get the point now. But now that that green is dry, I'm going to go into the basic gray, and I didn't find it was dark enough, so I'm going to add some more with my re-inker. And as you can see, when you keep dropping more droplets in the same pool, they naturally want to splatter. If you're not getting splatter, you don't have enough ink with water in the same pool. So just go back and keep dripping it in the same pool. Now, there's my hand again, because I wanted to get a little bit more splatter up on the top of that red. I found that it was a little bit too empty of a white spot up there. So once I've got that all laid down, I'm going to pull out my paintbrush, and I'm just going to create some red splatter over the red, some green splatter over the green, and gray over the gray. Now, I am picking up the water here in my pan because I want the paint to be a little looser. So the intensity of your splatter will depend on how much of the pure ink pigment that you picked up. Now, check this out. That's a baby wipe, and this mat just cleaned right up. It was so perfect. And I can see some bubbles here on my screen. But you know what? I didn't even notice them when I was actually making my card, and they didn't impede on my project in any way. So love this mat. So amazing. So now I'm going to pull out that birthday cake out of the Paper Pumpkin stamp set, and the second largest oval die out of the layering ovals dies. And I just kind of wanted to get a placement there to make sure I had my cake in the right spot. I'm going to use my embossing buddy to destaticify my paper. I even made a little dictionary thing for it there. I'm going to use the Versamark, which is a sticky substance that will allow the embossing powder to stick to it. And, you know, you get a little hitchhiker every now and again, and one of those little grains or two of those little grains don't want to let go. So just grab a paint brush and brush those off. There, we've got that heated up now. And I'm also going to do the inside of the cake. So the inside of the cake, I want it to be the confetti black. It's a shimmery black embossing powder, but it just reminded me of confetti cake, and it just looks so super classy. I mean, look at that stuff. Isn't that pretty? I just love it. So when you're embossing black, it's a little more difficult. So if you're new at it, just watch for it to get shiny, and then you know that it's done. And you can always kind of just test it and feel it after, and if it's not, then you can always add more and just continue on, right? So I'm also going to Versamark the little rose flowers. I guess they're roses, and I'm going to stamp those just on the empty space there on my card, on the cardstock, and do those in gold because I'm going to want to color those in. They're going to be part of the center. And I'm going to heat those up, and then I will slow this down for the coloring. Now I am going to watercolor these with my new paintbrush. I'm using it as much as I can. I got a bundle of these. Well, not a bundle, I guess. I got 5 or 6 of them. So I'm just loving them, and I got to use them as much as I can. So what you want to do here is you want to go in with the pure pigment out of your pan into the darkest parts of the flower, and you can see where I'm doing that there. And then I wipe off the ink and then just kind of blend in what's left on my paintbrush, and then I may go back and pick up some more light just to kind of get a softer blend there. So you're just going to go around all your little flowers. And you know, if you're new to watercoloring with ink, which I certainly was, there is a bit of a learning curve. The ink doesn't move the same. Even on watercolor paper, and this is just regular Whisper White cardstock, so that causes a little bit more of a challenge. But start with small little things like these, for example. The smaller things that you start with will help you kind of get a little knack for it. So I just pulled out my little water there, and that's just one of those little glass bottles that you see at the nail salon. I used to have a friend that hooked me up and got me a few of those. And I wish I could find more. I saw some on Amazon, but they're kind of spendy. And I think the shipping is like 2 months or something. So anyhow, if you know where I can get those, let me know because I would love more of them. So I'm going to use the green and I'm going to do the stems. And I went out of the lines. So I'm looking for my size 10 Sakura jelly roll. And I'm just going to rub that right over the green where I went out of the lines. And no one will ever know except you guys because you saw me do it on the video. And then I'm going to color the cake. And I'm going to do the cake the exact same way, just a little dark on the bottom of the roses. And then wiping off my paintbrush to get rid of the pure dark pigment and going back in with a little lighter. And there wasn't really any leaves here, but I decided to color some green around it anyway, just for some extra dimension. And then I'm going to color the cake in gray because that was my 3 colors. And I've never really seen a gray cake, but this is crafting and it's my card and it could be gray if I want it to, right? So it's going to be gray. And then I almost forgot to do the candle. I was cleaning up. So I'm going to go back and do the candle. And if you missed any little spots when you lined up your inside of your cake where I embossed it with the black, then absolutely go over it with the gray and it'll totally hide all of that. Now I did color the candle red because I had red and it was bugging me. So I went and got the let me try that again. I went and got the Mango Melody and I colored it in. And now I'm just going to go cut all of those pieces out. Not all of them. I'm going to cut the cake out on that totally threw me off. I'm going to cut the cake out with that oval or the circle die. All right. So now I'm going to do some of those little stitch lines around my circle just because I felt that it needed to end. And when I don't have anything around that circle and it goes on the card, I feel like it just keeps going forever. So I needed something to close that in. And it's super simple. You just take your black Stampin' Write marker and just do little dashes. And mine aren't even or perfect. And you know what? That's what makes this card homemade. So fussy cutting, my favorite thing to do, I'm gonna fussy cut these out because it's paper pumpkin and paper pumpkin doesn't come with dies. So we got to make it look pretty. And fussy cutting is just going around the image and leaving the same amount of white all the way around. So I'm going to fussy cut these out. And I cut the leaf off of the left side of one because I wanted it to fit in this little bottom part of the cake by that other little rose. And the leaf, I already made one of these cards last night, so that's why I know. I normally make the card ahead of time so that my video goes quicker and it saves me on editing time. And I have 2 because if you're like me, you make a card and you fall in love with it and then it sits in your stash for years because you don't want to give it away. So I make 2 so it doesn't pain me to give one away. So nevertheless, just go around with your craft knife real gently and cut right along the outside of the embossed line. And then you can kind of stuff those little flowers in there just perfectly. I put a little liquid glue behind them. And then I'm just going to curl the flowers up a little just because it looks nice for the photos and looks nice when it's sitting in my craft room. The mail will definitely flatten them, but I'm going to pull out the Celebrate and I'm going to use my paper pumpkin block. And for some reason, I had an issue getting this straight on there. It didn't want to go straight. So I played with it and I played with it until I thought it was straight. And then I'm just trying to determine where I'm going to stamp that. I'm going to use the embossing buddy to de-staticify the paper. And I'm going to use my Versamark again to ink up that stamp. And then I'm going to position that as straight as I possibly can. And I had too much black space, so I'm going to play with my paper trimmer and cut that out here in a minute. But I'm going to emboss that in white. There we go. Had a couple little hitchhikers, so I'm just going to use my paintbrush to get rid of those. And then we will heat emboss this, and then we'll get it trimmed up. So this little paper trimmer is free for new consultants that join during celebration with a whack of other cool free things. But this little plastic thing that you hold your paper down with, love, love, love that. But it does pose a little bit of a challenge when you're trying to cut something super skinny, but don't give up. Just be patient and you'll get it for sure. So I'm going to put that aside. And now on to this paper, and I'm going to go over how to flatten that up again right after I sprinkle splatter some gold on there. I just felt the card needed a little bit more splatter in the gold. Now, I will link this below. It's I don't even know how to say it. I think it's Shinhan art, but then I was watching a painting channel and they called it something different. They pronounced it different. They're probably right. I'm probably wrong. Anyhow, it's Shinhan art. It's a rich gold powder, and I just mix it with heat protectant spray. So I'm going to clean up, and then we're going to dry up this card. Now, as you can see, it's really rippled, and it was actually quite wet. So I'm going to run it through my Big Shot, and I found it didn't really, well, it flattened it for sure, but it wasn't perfect because it was still wet. So I ironed it. And all you need to do is sandwich it in between two pieces of parchment paper. Make sure there's no water in your iron, that it's completely dry, and just put it on the cotton setting. So I'm just wiping off all that embossing powder off of my black cardstock. I'm going to score that at 5.5. It was an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper I cut in half. And then I'm going to use my bone folder to get a nice crisp edge on it, crisp fold, if you will. And I did put the snail adhesive on there and adhered that down. It's almost dry. I mean, it's a little moist. I didn't want to go too crazy with the iron, but it really flattened it out quite nicely. So don't stress about painting on your designer series paper. Now here I go with a million foam, or I always want to call them foam, dimensionals. And the reason I do that is because the mail is so hard on our cards. So I don't want any creasing and any depressions in the actual piece that I'm raising up. So I put a lot of dimensionals on there. Now time for the sentiment. And I'm going to play around with this for a little bit. One of the cards I made last night, actually I made two last night. I think I said I made one, but I made two. My lines on the paper were the opposite direction that they are here, and I cut the end and it didn't match the way the lines were going, and it's driving me crazy. So I'm going to play with this and make sure that I cut the angle on the end of this sentiment, and there I go. I'm like, wait, make sure I do this one the right way. And I wanted the same degree of angle, I guess, so I just laid it on the paper there. So I've got a black dimensional on there. Yay me, I don't have to color my dimensionals black anymore. I finally broke down and bought some of the black ones for when I'm using the black paper, so it saves me time. And I've got the multi-purpose liquid glue under there, and that's pretty much it. I mean, I'm going to put the multi-purpose liquid glue just on top there, just to give it some weight while it dries. And I'm going to pull out some of the sequins out of the Peaceful Poppies sequins. That's a mouthful. Try and say that 10 times really quick. So now I've got it all kind of laid out where I want it. And confession, those black ones didn't come out of that little pot right there. I wanted some bigger black ones, so I went to my stash, and don't even ask me where I got them because I have no idea. I have so many sequins in my stash and they're not labeled. I never anticipated ever having to tell people where I got my stuff. And frankly, they're not Stampin' Up. So if it's an item that directly competes with Stampin' Up that Stampin' Up carries, I can't link it to you anyway, right? So nevertheless, there we have it. So that's all put together. It was 3 challenges in one card. Definitely check out my blog for the links and see if there's any time for you guys to get into them. I would love to see what you come up with. Don't forget, tomorrow is Let's Case It, Let's Make It Monday. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video. And until I see ya, take care and happy stampin'. Bye.